So my name is Tasha Duje, and I am a local Apex Art New York City fellow.
Wonderful. So glad to have you here. And in celebration of your last day, your last official fellowship day. So it's been 2 weeks of pretty immersive, highly scheduled itinerary.
Yes.
How do you feel in this moment right now?
Well, I'm happy I did it for sure. It's like the schedule was interesting because I don't know if this is usually what happens, but we had a lot of pivots on our schedule. And I was just like, is this usual and customary? I mean, like the weather really is not allowing for much of what I was on was scheduled to like manifest. But we pivoted and we got stuff done, and it definitely, I can see immediately how the experiences were being transmuted in my own body, like,
Mm.
and how I was drawing connections to like other events. I don't know if that was intentional, but like if I passed by something, I'm like, oh, that was a part of the tour. And like, oh, I was here for mini golf, and just seeing that it was happening in real time, right? I
Mm.
didn't have to wait until after the fellowship, after the residency to be complete for those connections to be fortified. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what I mentioned in one of the posts is just like these tourist attractions are just not for tourists, they're for us as well. And like they're kind of like a birthright, why not relish in the marvels in the same way that people who don't live here do. And I was talking to a friend of mine with relation to the Empire State Building. And while we were talking, and I was telling her, like, I had this express pass, and I was like, oh,
Mm.
okay. But then it was like the express pass wasn't all it was cracked up to be in the grand scheme of things, because it just gave you like a watered down presentation of the narrative and like the stories in the making of the Empire State Building. So it was actually helpful that it wasn't so jam packed, because then I was able to cross paths and then be with everyone else and experiencing that. And what I shared with my friend was that it was a reminder that these structures, even though they seem stagnant, they're imbued with fluid stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the brick holds the story of someone who was like throwing the rivets, and sometimes life doesn't, or society doesn't create space for us to appreciate that, right? Like who were the people, even if they couldn't archive all of the names, which they probably did in some record of some sort. For those of us who don't have access to that, like how do we ensure that we know like this may not be it's an inanimate object, but it's imbued with life,
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
that was a reminder that we were having the conversations that, I was saying like, how do we use silence and stillness as a technology to get us close
Mm.
to the things that we want? Yeah, so these are some of the things that have been going through my mind. It's like New York. I love New York. I'm one of the people like, right, I'm gonna leave this place. I'm gonna leave this place. And it wasn't until I started, my art journey and venturing to other spaces that I was just like, oh, Chicago's not that bad. Philly's not
Mm.
that bad. But at the core, I'm just a hardcore New Yorker. You know what I mean? Like there's no denying the mystical, majestic, ample possibilities that this place can offer. It's there's nothing like it. There's nothing like New York. And New York has really, like, New York City is like the school of life. If you can live here, you can go anywhere and be fine. Like, it is the place that will show you what it is that you need and you want with no sweetness. You get what I'm saying? Like, You said you wanted a fast-paced life. This is what you want because it don't get no faster than this. It's like, you know what? Actually, I like to get some balance. So you know what? I'll stay in Jersey or I'll stay in Philly and venture in and out as I so choose. And so with that being said, it's just like New York showed up for me in the way that I know that she could, it's just like, it was just more of an affirmation. Like, you are that girl. Like, you just really, New York City is really a teacher. And I feel like all spaces can do that, but because it's such a conglomerate, like a cornucopia of so many different people, like, it's like, it's not homogeneous here. You know what I'm saying? Maybe parts of that, but here, like, you get a little bit of everything. Like when we went to Astoria, I mentioned that I'm familiar with Socrates Park because my sister moved to Astoria. And you can be anything you want. I can be Ecuadorian, Peruvian, Greek. It's just like, give me all of the things at one time. So there is a fluidity around cultural exchange that I feel that New York does it and does it the best. So it was just like,
there's a couple activities that happen to deal with like meditation, silence, but then others, it sounds like, brought you to silence again, or like thinking about quietness. I'm curious about.
Yeah, the Quakers threw me for a loop because you just hear service. I was raised Roman Catholic. I have Baptist friends. Pentecostal. I know the whole shebang. Seventh-day Adventist, all of the things, and you have all of these iterations of how people worship. But for people to actually like come together and be like, choose to be silent in community, like that was the thing. I was like, so you are choosing to be, and I was like, and I'll speak from the I. Is like usually when I think of people who do that, I think of monks, right? We're correlating the silence, because like even when I'm having my confession, like there's still a dialogue, right? It's like, well, what would it mean to confess in silence? Will that be honored if I just go into the confessional and just, it just really opens up. First of all, it reminds me also of, because I'm clearly a big personality. I have radioactive hair, clearly. And I remember someone offering in a course that I had taken that, sometimes we have a lot to say, right? And when we're big personalities, people who don't have big personalities can sometimes fall on the crutch of someone with a big personality to say all the things, right? So what they really offered was discernment, right? You're always gonna have something to say for the most part. Being clear around which moments are the moments to say the thing that you're saying in the face. And some people are just natural observers. They're just going to be listening all day. They're going to be listening, and that's fine. But what does it mean just to create space? And now that I'm talking to you too, like it also makes me think about how I've brought up silence and space as an option, an alternative to the learning and the unlearning, right? Because we go into these workshops and the facilitators are talking, going. Like, does anyone have anything to say? And then they'll like call on people. And I'm like, well, what if the silence is the thing to say? Because now you've given space to ingest. And for your body to respond to the thing. So it doesn't have to constantly be filled with sound, you know? That's when and that's why I also mentioned that how I have also used silence as a tool for preparation.
Right.
Like, I didn't want to go back into the streets. I did not want to do that. However, having my own experience with being in the streets, talking about Black Lives Matter, I know the sound of that reverberating on my body was different than hearing it on a television screen, right? And I didn't want my sister to be alone in that moment. So I had to like retire I had to like dust off my street boots.
Yeah.
I did it twice, maybe like 3 times. And I was like, you know what? I remember why I retired. And I'm okay with that. I can do the work in other ways.
Mhm.
But being silent that day before gave me strength later on.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Tomorrow you're gonna, or like tonight, you're gonna come back into your apartment and your home and start, like coming back into your daily life of being a New Yorker. And I'm just curious what you hope to bring with you slash.
Well, what's clear is that I'm already bringing y'all with me as per the post, right?
Mhm.
There, you know how they say when you know, it's you just, when you know, like I can't unknow. Like I can't unknow these things anymore. And there are obviously, so like again, Greenwood. I had no idea about Greenwood. You know what I mean? And I was just like, oh, but Basquiat was buried here. What? Freedom Lots? What? So even if I wasn't interested in the thing that was offered, I found a way to find something that did pique my interest. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like the juxtaposition between the Secret Mausoleum Club at Greenwood and then the Quaker Observatory that was like absolutely no people in here. This is private property, your mother. They were like, no. So that is something that enriches me and it takes me. And then just perspective, again, allowing my thoughts and my ideologies and the way that I think and the way that I consume information just gets expanded. It's like, okay, cemetery. Yes, you were wealthy in life, but did you really need to take up this much space in death? Like barricades. I'm like, but no one's gonna punch you in the grave. Like no one, I understand creating space in real life if you want to be down, but I was like in death too. So there's all of these things that are in my mind. But one thing I would say this process has affirmed for me is that the art is beyond the making. Right? And where I was prior to the fellowship only got amplified in that I was toiling around with ideas of honoring the body as the first archive and things being ephemeral, because I just hear these horror stories where these artists, they transition, they didn't really have anyone assigned to steward their work. And so a lot of the work either gets discarded, some curator happens to stumble across it, then the artist is being honored posthumous and all of these things. And then it's just like, people acquire artwork, they don't have space for the artwork. So like the artwork is now living in a shack or in a closet. That's not why we make it, So it's just like, what can I bring into the world that fills a void, that takes up space in a different type of way, but still has impact, right? And that fortifies these personal relationships to not only the things that are being made through artists, but like the residual, longer lasting imprints that are left by that.